Good evening, everyone. It's author R. Weir. Randy, how's everyone doing out there? Got a snowstorm coming into Colorado. We'll see. We haven't had hardly any snow this year. We'll see what if it turns out to be a big storm or not. Usually January is not a big snow time for us, but we'll see how it goes. But I'm gonna jump right into our guest. She's a Colorado author, and I'm gonna bring her on here now and say hi. Hi, Barbara. How you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you, Randy?
Fabulous here in Colorado. It's a new year. We'll see what the new year has in store for all of us
Yeah,
this year.
it's going to be a crazy one, I think.
Yeah, I think we say that just about every year, don't we? But
Through
it
that,
seems like
yeah.
lately we haven't been wrong, right? It seems like they've all been a little chaotic,
So
especially for us
wonky.
in the author world. If
That's always crazy, though.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
been crazy from the get-go.
Well, as I've told most people, we got to be a little bit crazy to get into this profession. When we enjoy it, but it has its moments sometimes where it's not so much fun. So, but thanks for being on. Appreciate having you. You and I have met a couple of other times. I haven't really talked too often. I don't think. I think you talked to my wife more than me. But we met at the Westminster Library years and years and years ago, before pre-COVID, when I was a
Oh,
lot
yeah.
younger and didn't have as much gray hair.
Aren't we
And
all?
and then you were at the first Readers Take Denver. You were on the table right behind me, and actually behind and to the other side, the less chaotic version of the Readers Take Denver. And we were in a room where there was hardly anybody. We were talking about that backstage, how the romance room was jam packed, and we were like, nobody wanted to buy any mystery thriller books or crime books.
So we're rethinking our genre. Is that right?
Yes, we all needed to have a big hunky male model with us next to us to sell our books to
Never
show.
hurts.
Yeah. Whatever we do, it whatever we can to sell. So Barbara, tell us a little about yourself. I know you live here in Colorado, as I do. So you've got the impending snowstorm coming in as well. But tell us a little bit about yourself and your family and what you do in this crazy author world besides writing books.
Is there anything else?
Sometimes no.
Yeah, I'm kind of in that point right now. But yeah, I live with my husband, and right now our daughter's living with us, and we're in Colorado Springs. So we're kind of at the foot of the 14,000-foot peak, Pikes Peak. Um, in fact, I was just going up the incline on Sunday with my husband. It was our anniversary, and I don't know, most people do fine dinner and wine, but we climbed up the Manitou incline. Um,
On
so
foot, or you took the actual incline that goes up there?
Well, what it used to be is the cog railway, and now that all
Yes.
that's left are the railroad ties.
Oh,
So
okay.
the only way up is on foot. So
Oh,
it's
they so they don't, I didn't know they didn't have the cog railroad anywhere.
yeah, they took that out a while back and then tried to close that property, but people kept trespassing because they wanted to test themselves on the incline. Because it's 22,744 steps, 1 mile, and up to a 68% grade. So it's a killer. But it's a great workout, except every time I find myself on there, I'm like, why did I sign up for this?
Wow, that's got to be hard. My calves are just burning thinking about walking up the incline. Can't even imagine.
It is a thigh shredder for sure, a quad shredder.
And you
Um,
don't need oxygen afterwards.
but you are going.
Yeah.
People start out at the bottom, they're talking, and then they're
Yeah.
not.
Because there's definitely a lot less up there. I mean, how high up? I mean, is it all the way to the top?
Well, no, it's only a mile,
Yeah.
so it's at it runs parallel to Bar Trail, and Bar Trail is what goes up to the top of Pikes Peak.
Yeah.
So if you're going to hike the entire peak, you can start on the incline and cut off a bunch of the switchbacks,
Yeah.
but you'll be pretty tired by the time you get to the up that 1 mile, which is I don't know, three or no, maybe as much as 5 miles on the Bar Trail. So you really cut out some mileage, but it's brutal. But hey.
Pretty scenery, obviously.
Oh
Gorgeous.
yeah.
This time of year is probably a little chilly, though.
Which is good because you start building up a sweat.
Yeah.
pretty quickly and start shedding layers. And I was doing that yesterday, and I put my backpack down and my water bottle fell out and went rolling downhill, which is, so I lost a lot. I had to go all the way back down these steps and then come all the way back up. Like, no, this isn't fair. Don't I get extra credit for this?
It's not like you can dive after it, right? I mean, that would be a bad idea.
Yeah, very bad idea.
Go head over heels over down.
You'd get down to the bottom pretty fast.
You would get down to the bottom pretty fast. There wouldn't be a whole lot left. So my idea of that would be a Peloton device that does that for you, right? And you just see it on a screen, right?
Yeah.
You do the actual hard version where.
That's a great idea. Somebody should put that on a Peloton.
Yeah, I would think I have the copyright. I want to make sure I trademark that just in case I can make some money on it. So, are any other 14ers that you have gone up through the years?
Yes, but so I've only done Pikes Peak and Quandary. And Quandary just about killed me. I was not in as good a shape as I thought I would. So I started out pretty cocky, and by the time we got to the top and then came back down, I looked like a zombie, I'm sure. I was staggering. But I hope to do more. It's a goal. I want to climb Kilimanjaro. That's a big bucket list item for me.
Yeah. And then I saw on your website you spelunk, get into caves.
I do. I have not done that in a long time, and I need to get back into it. But it is a hoot and a half. The first time I went, I was concerned whether or not I would be claustrophobic because I'd never tried it, and happily I wasn't. I mean, even when you have to, there's one place here nearby in the Rockies. It's called the Birth Canal because it's that hard to get through. It's like being born again, and I was really happy that I could manage that without freaking out. But I would never go by myself. I always go with a trained leader.
Well, you got the Cave of the Winds down there. That's not too far away. And I've done the easy one, the regular touristy one.
That's
and about
fun.
The only freaky thing is when you get all the way to the back there, they turn the lights off.
Yep.
And then you're like, true darkness. I mean, there is no light whatsoever. Your eyes can't adjust. You can't see nothing.
Right.
I can't imagine, because I think they have some that are a little tighter and tougher.
They do.
And I can't imagine going in there and then all of a sudden your light doesn't work anymore and you can't
That's why you bring lots of backup batteries.
You need to have something there. So my wife was watching in. She had to comment. So we'll talk about your new book, but she's been reading The Drowning Game, and she's been enjoying it. I told her, I says, you got to read that for me. So I'm in the middle of editing my own book right now.
Oh gosh.
My whole brain is on that. So reading other than my stuff right now, if I try to read somebody else's book, their plot line will end up in my story. So.
Well, tell Kimberly, thank you. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
I didn't catch that.
She says she's waiting for the twist and the turn. Can't wait till get to the end.
I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
I'm writing the next book, so this will be interesting because I don't know about you, Randy, but when I finish a book, I sort of flush it and move on to the next thing.
Yes.
So, like, what happened in the last book? I don't know.
Well, and if you're doing a series, sometimes you have to go back and maybe read over the previous series so you keep the continuity correct. Because your fans are going to find mistakes, like somebody's eye color is different.
Don't do that. You have to have your Bible and you have to remember to read it.
That's right. Yeah, they catch them all sometimes. So you travel quite a bit too, don't you? I think I've seen some posts from you on Facebook and stuff of travels around the world, Europe, Asia. Have you hit all the continents yet? I
have not, but I will say this is a dream come true. I have wanted to travel since I was tiny. I don't know. I was made in Japan, born in Guam, so maybe that
sure
fostered something. But I have a really good friend. I call her my travel wife because her husband is done with traveling, and my husband still works full time. It's hard for him to get time off.
Right.
And so we travel really well together, and we're already planning our next adventure. But there's some places I would love to go that are off limits now. Iran, Russia, and now after the drowning game's out, I probably can't go to China either.
Have you been banned in China?
I would be a little concerned.
Well, we'll get into the storyline there and maybe why China. China, it doesn't take much to get banned in China, but
Through that.
if you say anything bad about them and all that. So how long have you been writing? Is this something that you've been done since you were a youngster, or is this something that kind of just grew over time?
Oh, it's something I wanted. I was 3 when I told my mom I was going to be a writer.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, I was having the first of many now, eye surgeries. And I would get these good get well cards, and I would flip them over to the back, and then I would imitate my mom's handwriting because I didn't know the alphabet. I didn't know how to write, and I would make up stories to go with my handwriting. And I said, I can't wait till I can really actually understand how to read and write and put words on paper. So I started young, and my first official story, I had read about the Underground Railroad and Harriet Tubman, and I wanted to write. I was 9, and I wanted to write a story about the terrible deprivations of slavery. And since I'm a white girl, I wrote it from the perspective of a white woman in the South. My family's from the South, and the story I think started out pretty well. I had a beautiful spring day on the plantation, and I described the wind and the trees and all the flowers. And my heroine gets up on her horse. She's going to go to the market and I hate to even use the phrase buy people, and then get them to the Underground Railroad. But when I got to page 2, I realized I didn't know anything about slavery or the Underground Railroad or geography.
Mm-hmm.
So her horse stumbled and she falls off the horse, and the consequences were kind of disastrous. So I changed the title from Road to Freedom to Trampled by a Horse. And that was my first thriller.
Yeah. And do you still have that original copy that you wrote somewhere, filed away somewhere?
I would have, except we were in the Waldo Canyon fire of 2012. So I'm a blessing or a curse. I'm not sure in terms of my writing, but all of that is gone. All of my young efforts.
Oh, that's too bad. Didn't ever transfer them over digitally, huh?
This was back in the day.
Yeah, back too far.
It was back when I thought it was cool that on a typewriter you could hit the return button and the carriage would automatically go without having to do the lever. So I'm completely dating myself, but yeah.
I learned on an electric typewriter in high school, which shows you how old I am.
Yeah. That was mandatory, right?
Well, I always thought I was going to be doing typing computer something. I wasn't really sure I was going to be a writer yet, but I had the idea. But I always thought that was a good skill to be able to touch type.
Well, you were smart. Ours was kind of funny. It was taught by the football coach, and I don't think either he or any of us really wanted to be there.
That's fun. That's funny. The football coach teaching. Well, he had to probably do at least one class, right? Being the coach.
Exactly. Right? Yeah.
So that's an easy one, right? He could do home ec maybe, but he probably didn't know how to cook.
No, or so. Yeah.
That's right. Didn't know how to do any of those things. So yeah. So it sounded like you were motivated to be a writer, basically out of the womb, even like boom, 3 years old. That's pretty amazing. So when was that first published work?
Well, I wish I had been productive and stuck with it, but
had a little time in there that before that first one came, huh?
Yeah, I pretty much interested in everything, and I went off and did a whole lot of other stuff with my life. Always intending to write, always intending to come back to it, or actually doing some writing on the side. And I got some short stories published when I was, oh gosh, in my late 20s, 30s. I can't remember exactly. But then the aforementioned wildfire is what really spurred me. I kind of thought, I'm either going to do this or I'm going to get serious about something else. I'm going to go volunteer for Amnesty International and get into human rights. Like
Right.
I said, I wanted to do everything. So that's when I really started pushing forward. And that was in 2015. I mean, the wildfire was in 2012. Started writing the book. I finished it. Well, I halfway finished it and went to Thriller Fest to pitch it. And that was in 2015. So it took me a while.
And you're traditionally published with a traditional publisher, obviously.
Right. Yeah, I'm too lazy to do it any other way. I have so much admiration for indie authors, and I can't even imagine the work involved.
Well, you either do, and I'm indie, and so you either do it yourself or you pay somebody to do it, and it's kind of one of those draw the line. I thought I
Right.
interviewed Reed Farrell Coleman, and he's like,
Oh,
he was
yeah.
the same way, and he's like, Randy, I'm here to write. I pay people to do everything else. I don't do anything else. That's my job, and everyone else I just pay them to do it. So,
And that's great if you can do that.
yeah,
That's that,
if
and
you
you
can
find
afford
good
it.
people. Yeah. Yeah. It's not cheap, but I think it's getting less cheap.
Yeah. So who are some of the authors that you who inspired you to be a writer beyond that 3 years of age? But I'm sure there's people that you weren't reading books at 3, so later on.
No, but I did have the Classics Illustrated comic books and the Junior Classics Illustrated comic books. So I guess that wasn't my first reading because I couldn't read, but I would make up stories to go with the pictures. And then I remember when I could actually read what it was, this amazing thing. Like somebody had waved a magic wand and suddenly these characters are talking and I understand what's going on with the story. But I just got sidetracked. What was your question? Oh, favorite authors.
Yeah, who'd you like to read? Who are those authors that really got you?
Oh, there's so many. There's so many good writers, and I'm one of those writers. I read a book and I don't go, oh, I could have done that. I read a book and go, oh, I wish I'd done that. So
You're
I
not
was
critiquing them in the process of reading. Oh, that's good.
no, I'm just jealous. Like, how do they do that? I don't know. I'm just going to keep reading. But my mom was an English literature teacher, and so I was raised on the classics, which I loved. And I think my first commercial novel was Jaws, Peter Benchley's Jaws. Excuse me. And my mom had told me I absolutely could not read that book. I think I was 17, but she left it on her nightstand. Come on.
It
Actually,
wasn't
that
hidden
was
underneath the bed or anything. It was right there where you
no,
could
it was
find
right
it. Yeah.
there where
Yeah.
but actually I forget. I actually read The Godfather in my honors English class in 8th grade. We
Well,
got to vote for the book we were going to read, and I voted for Tess of the D'Urbervilles by Thomas Hardy because that's what I knew, and everybody else voted for The Godfather, and they won. But anyway, so through the years, I guess if I were to focus on mystery and thriller authors, James Lee Burke was one of the earliest that I read and went, wow, you can write commercial fiction that's also what they call upmarket now, just really excellent quality of writing and characterization. And then I read Mystic River by Dennis Lehane. And that remains one of my favorite books. Such a brilliant book. The depth of the characters in that, I can't even watch the movie because I know what happens, and it's an agonizing story, but so well done.
yeah.
And then here in Colorado, we have so much talent, right?
Oh
It's
yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, I don't usually have any trouble finding authors to interview. I interview ones that don't live in Colorado too, but yeah, there's anytime there's an author event, it's usually a big turnout.
Yeah, yeah. I don't, it must be the altitude or the air. I don't know, but we make great writers here.
Well, after you climb up the top of a 14er, right? Then
You know, Kevin J. Anderson, he hikes peak mountains like that.
yeah.
Do you know Kevin?
Uh-uh.
Oh my gosh, he's been writing for, did he say 35 years or more? He wrote the Dune books with Frank Herbert's son
Oh, okay, sure.
after Frank passed away, and he dictates everything. So he gets his exercise in while he's writing, and how he has breath to do that, I have no idea.
So he has one. Do you have one of those like the treadmill with a little stand, and he's typing
No,
away while he's running?
he's out climbing mountains, literally climbing mountains with his dictaphone, whatever
Oh, so he's dictating it
whatever
as
app. Yeah, he's dictating as he goes, and then he pays somebody to transcribe it, and that's pretty amazing. I don't think
Yeah,
I couldn't do that.
I don't think I could even think.
Hey, but we could be writing romance. She gasped, looked at him. She said,
Could
"No,
narrate an
romance is great."
audiobook romance maybe, and
Yeah.
yeah.
No,
While we can't
no,
get our breath. So
romance is great. I'm just joking around, but
yeah, well, I don't write it, but who knows? Maybe someday. Though I would think, I know there's probably some male romance authors, but I think most of the time people like to have a female name on that book for when it's a romance. Just like there's a negativity about female authors who write thrillers too, and I know there's authors
yeah,
who I've talked to who said that used to be a real stigma. It's like a woman can't
yep,
write those type of books.
right. And that's why you'll see, and I debated this myself, you'll see a lot of initials rather than the full name. I am
And
having
no
serious
photo of them,
allergies.
or maybe a very grainy photo. You can't tell who they are, right?
I don't know. I kind of like the approach by the author who wrote, okay, I bring it up and now I'm not going to be able to finish it. She's Italian, or he's Italian. They don't know who the author is. My Best Friend, is that right? They just did a series, HBO series out of the books, but this person has managed to remain completely anonymous. So,
Really?
yeah, nobody
Wow.
knows gender or anything, age, anything. It has a certain appeal.
Well, I know it's funny. I did an event, the very first, I think, author event I ever did, and a person came there and she had heard of my books and she'd read them, and I go by R. Weir on my books, and she thought I was a woman. She didn't
Right.
know. I was like, well, I thought you're a woman. I wasn't sure how to take that as an author. Was that a good thing or a bad thing? Right? When it comes, because it was a private eye book, so I
What
just
made you
kind of, I was
decide?
just like, okay,
Surprise.
yeah,
Um,
surprise.
well, what made you decide to write under your initial?
Mostly because I work in the IT world and identity theft and all that, and I just didn't have a real
Oh,
happy
interesting.
feeling about putting my whole name on there. A
Wow.
lot of people use two initials, and they said
Mhm.
I had to be unique, of course. I just did one initial instead of using my middle initial, so I just decided as R. Weir. And so a lot of people, I get emails from people and they go, "Hi, Rick," or they just don't have the right first name, so just whatever. I don't. Rick seems to be the common thing that people think it
Really
is. I don't know why, which is funny because that's what
interesting.
my brother's name is.
Oh, so he's going to get all the credit at some point.
He's going to get the credit. He's not an author, and I'm sorry, he can't have my royalties. If he wants to help pay for everything, I would be fine with that.
That would be a different case. And yeah, I couldn't go with my initials because it would be BS, and that just doesn't work.
Yes, Nichols. Yeah, that would probably definitely would work against you there on that one. So.
I don't know. Maybe it'd make people smile.
That's right. Yeah. So, all right. So let's talk about your book. So, what was that first book you published? What was the first big one? And I've got pictures of all your books here. So, was that the Sydney Rose?
Right. So Blood
Series?
on the Tracks was the launch. That's the the book that I pitched at Thriller Fest, at Pitch Fest, in 2015, I guess. Um, so this one is about a former Marine. She comes back to Denver and she decides to be a railroad cop because she comes from a family of railroad people and she figures she won't have to interact with people. So she's suffering from post-traumatic stress syndrome, and she has a canine partner who also served in Iraq and also has post-traumatic stress. But of course, murder ensues, and so I pair her up with a Denver major crimes detective, and that was a lot of fun. You know, I picked police procedural in part because I knew a mystery would be easier to sell. I think after romance, it's the second biggest genre. But also, I just love the forensics aspect of it. And I just tried to come up with a different slant. And so making her a railroad cop, I think there's a couple of others out there, but at the time I wrote, I didn't know about them. So I thought I was breaking new ground. But it was a lot of fun to write. So now it's a 4-book
to
series.
ask, Blood
Sure.
on the Tracks. Are you a Bob Dylan fan?
I am.
That's like his most famous, well-known album. So,
well, and I was sitting around with my critique group, trying to come up with the title because my publisher was saying the title I had on it was not going to work, which was White Line Fever, which refers to hitchhiking. And so it didn't really fit with the thing. And it also refers to cocaine. I really didn't want that.
Sure.
that implication in there. So we were sitting around brainstorming, and one of the people, Kurt, came up with that title because he's a musician. First, he came up with Choo Choo Cop because he's had a baby. His wife had just had a baby. He's like, how about Choo Choo Cop?
That sounds like a kid movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger in, right? Kindergarten Cop,
Kindergarten
Choo Choo Cop,
Cop, yeah.
be the sequel, right?
That would be so fun. So I thought I'd get to name all my books after rock and roll titles, but
yes.
Nope. Publisher said, nope, not going to happen.
So did you know any veterans who've dealt with PTSD or interview any? I mean, how did you work that into the storyline? Or
yeah, absolutely. I mean, my dad was a bomber pilot in World War II, and I knew early on that these guys didn't talk about their war stories. They didn't talk about their experiences. My uncle had been wounded and captured in the Battle of the Bulge and been a POW, and he didn't talk about it. And that actually came out of the wildfire because my friends and I were having these symptoms that we didn't understand. We were hypervigilant. We were having nightmares. We were having trouble sleeping when we weren't having nightmares. Flashbacks, just crazy stuff. And that's when I learned about post-traumatic stress. And then I started talking to veterans. The first thing I did was I went to the Marine recruiting office to learn about Marines. Once I settled on which branch I was going to look at, I walked in there and this young man came out and he looked like the Hollywood version of the Marine recruiter, the square jaw and the broad shoulders and the short haircut, and just very impressive. And he said, "May I help you, ma'am?" And I was so excited. I was looking at all the recruiting posters and all the information they had. And I said, "I just want to know everything about the Marines."
Yeah. And
he stopped and he rubbed his chin and he said, "Ma'am, we have an age limit."
He thought you were there to apply for it. I'm going to be enrolling into the Marines.
Isn't there a grandmother corps or something? But he was really helpful. And then I got involved with, there was a collaboration between the National Endowment for the Arts and the Department of Defense to bring healing arts to veterans. So I started teaching creative writing to veterans at the UCCS Veterans Health and Trauma Center, University of Colorado in Colorado Springs. And really got to know some of these people, and they are amazing. Amazing what they went through, amazing what they dealt with when they came home.
Yeah, that's the male bravado, right? They don't speak about the things that are bothering you and all that, and don't show your pain, which is sometimes that's why they struggle with it. I mean,
exactly. And the military, for sure, because the high rate of suicide. I mean, the military is getting much smarter about it, but it's still, you kind of have this warrior ethic.
Yes.
And we're back in the days of the Iliad and the Greeks, you bonded together before you got home. You had this decompression time with the brotherhood, because it was all men or mostly men then.
Right.
And you could kind of process all that before you were reintegrated into society. But now it's an airplane right away, and suddenly, boom, you're dropped back into modern American society, and it's crazy.
Yeah.
It's a really tough transition, and they're not lauded the way they were. My dad came home; they were heroes.
Right.
And every time he wore his World War II baseball cap, he'd get a free sandwich at Subway. I mean, somebody would say, "Sir, let me buy you a sandwich," and
Right.
thank you for your service.
Right.
Yeah. Extremely different with Vietnam, of course.
Yeah, Vietnam was different. I think it's gotten hopefully a little bit better. I think if people appreciate it more, but yeah, it's a lot of sacrifice.
Yeah.
And all that. And so the second book, so this has been a 4-book series so far.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if there's more in the offering or not, but
I think it's just at 4 for now.
yes. So this is the second one, right?
That is the second one.
Yeah.
And so in each book, I try to delve into some sort of societal issue. So the first one was returning veterans and post-traumatic stress. With this one, I'm dealing with railroad crossings and the number of accidents that happen through, unfortunately, the fault of the railroads. I mean, sometimes it's the driver, they decide they want to race a train, or they're just not paying attention if there's no arm that comes down. But not a lot of times, but sometimes the arm is broken, the lights are broken. And so I just developed a murder mystery around that. So learned a lot about trains and railroads, and now every time I approach tracks, I slow way down.
Yeah. That's not one. My brother-in-law works for light rail, and he's like one of the top heads at light rail, and they get people all the time running into the trains and accidents, and
oh gosh.
Yeah, it's
and suicide by train, which is terrible for the driver. Yeah.
All right, and then the third book was this one, I believe, right?
Ambush, right?
Yeah.
And that's one where I close off. I set up something that happened in Iraq when Sydney and her canine partner Clyde were there. I wrapped that up in Ambush, and so we're a little bit back to the veteran community, but also some other issues that were a lot of fun to delve in. So that book actually opens in Mexico before coming back quickly to Denver. That was a lot of fun to write.
And what type of dog is, you said Clyde, right?
Clyde, yeah, Belgian Malinois.
So he is a Malinois, okay.
Yeah.
I'm starting a new series, and my dog is going to have a dog in it too, and it's going to be a Belgian Malinois as well. I got to be around some of the canines at Westminster. I did the Westminster Citizens Police Academy.
Oh, yeah.
They had a canine section there where we did and got to meet the dogs and saw a little bit of the training they did with them. I mean, they're just incredible animals.
They are. Yeah. And the Mals, they're tough. I mean, there's lots of sayings, pride goeth before a Mal. Or they call them Maligators because they like to chew on things.
Oh yeah.
But they're incredibly smart dogs, and they're a bit smaller than German Shepherds. So that's why the Navy SEAL teams will use them, because it's easier to parachute with them.
Yeah. Carry them on their front, right?
They do, yeah.
With them, they're like a baby carrier, and something, but it's a dog. Yeah.
I think, is that how they do it with humans when you jump with somebody? I think that's the only way
sometimes you hold on to them, but they might have a strap or whatever. Yes, for someone crazy enough to jump out of a plane. So
that's what my dad, the Air Force pilot, said. Why would anybody jump out of a perfectly good airplane?
Some people enjoy it. That's not my speed, but hey, what the heck, right? And then this is book 4.
Yeah, Gone to Darkness deals with issues of toxic masculinity. I use some different terminology in there for the same reason that you chose to use R instead of Randy on your books. I just didn't want to draw attention to myself. But that was a very creepy world to go into. It's just a whole set of people who think very, very differently from mainstream thinkers.
So a little bit of a, I don't know if it's a political statement or not, but I mean, obviously those people are out there.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we've seen more of that. I had noticed an early review. I read my reviews for a short period of time just to kind of see how the book's going to land. I mean, I don't know what I'm going to do about it. If it doesn't land well, there's
Right.
nothing I can do except maybe learn something for my next book. But some guy had written, "Oh, this is just so unbelievable. I mean, that there would be men like this and that they would do these things." It's like, dude, have you read the headlines?
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not much of a stretch. I mean, some of your best fictional work is based on what really is happening in the world these days.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not hard. I mean, just watching the news for writers, you get ideas.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. It's incredible what's going on. And of course, we're just exposed more to it. I think a combination of the tools are there now using the internet and artificial intelligence, but also the broadband. We see stuff that we never saw before or didn't learn about before.
Well, there's no filter with social media too. People just
Yeah.
write stuff and they don't even think about what they're
I
putting
don't
out.
understand that.
It's like they just
Were you raised
right
in a
there, and I'm
barn?
just going to type it out, and I don't care.
Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah.
that's therapeutic to them. I don't know. It gets it out of their head. But sometimes it's like some of the stuff you read, I'm like, oh my gosh.
Oh, I try to avoid that as much as possible. It's the comments. You can read an article, and then I generally do not go down the comments.
Yeah, no kidding. Yes. Well, and that's like you said with book reviews. Sometimes you have some, and some of them are funny. I had a series of book reviews on several of my books, and it was a verified purchase on Amazon, and it said, "Not my book, Christian writer," and this is my Private Eye series, and I'm like, what are you reading? This is not a Christian
If you
book.
read the description,
Yeah, it's not anything. But they bought the book, so I guess I got the money for it. But I thought, did they even read the book? They just posted it. That was like one line.
It's
Christian author.
It's so frustrating. I mean, I get 1-star reviews like my Kindle isn't working. Okay.
Well, that's your fault, right?
Sorry,
your book
really
broke my Kindle.
Exactly. I didn't think about that, Randy. Yeah. Oh, feeling bad now all of a sudden.
It used up all the memory on my book. I don't, and now it won't work anymore, right? So, oh man. So this, we were talking about this a little bit backstage. The Sydney Parnell, right? Is
right.
It was optioned for TV to be a television series, and all the fun you're going through there. Is there any progress in that, or is it pretty much kind of just stuck in mud?
I have not heard anything. This is the second time it's been optioned.
Yeah.
It was a producer who optioned it originally, and he had a financial backer who's also a producer. And when he stepped out because he had gone out on his own, he went back to work. He was working for Skydance. I don't know if that's who he went back to. Then she optioned it. And at the time she was developing stuff for HBO. So, you dream.
Yeah. Maybe, huh?
But we were also talking about how many people the deal falls through. It's the long road from signing an option to actually development and a pilot and then actually somebody picking up and doing that series. And I was very close one other time with CBS wanted a series. Their producer and the director, I guess, wanted blood on the tracks, and it was a done deal, and poof, gone. So.
Yeah. Well, and you mentioned too that there was a debate on the dog, whether they're going to use a real dog or a CGI dog.
So that was for Robert Crace. with
Yeah.
his books, and
Well, that was not one of your books. Okay,
no,
that
it
was
was
a
not one
different
of my books,
book.
and
Okay.
to this date, as far as I know, they have not turned that series of his into. In fact, I don't know if they've done any series work with his books, which they'd make great television. So hit and miss.
Yeah. Well, Lee Child and Michael Connelly, how many years did it take for their stuff to get there? And of course, Lee, of course, had Reacher. Tom Cruise did 2 movies, and
Hmm.
Tom was, great actor, but not the right person to play Reacher. I don't think there's lifts big enough to make him tall enough to be Reacher in the book.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, he did a great job, and
Yeah.
but he definitely didn't fit the description of
No.
Jack
But
Reacher.
you do it, because he's got a big name and whatever. So
Yeah, you're
yeah,
not gonna cry, right?
box office, right? Yeah. Do you ever have an idea of an actress that would play your main character?
I don't. I laugh because I found out my husband, he knows all the contents of People magazine. He doesn't read People magazine. I don't know where he picks all this stuff up. So he knows the names of all the actors. I do not. So I would have no idea.
Yeah.
He had decided on Jennifer Lawrence. Um,
Sure.
and then the original director or producer who had optioned it asked if what I thought about going with a Black woman
Hmm.
for that role, and I said I'm certainly open to it. You just have to backstory that into the character, right? It has
Right.
to be part of who she is. You can't just,
Right.
hate to use the expression, whitewash it, but so but and that was a big name actor they were talking to at that point, but so far no takers.
Someday we'll keep fingers crossed. You never know. As
We'll
long as they
see.
keep
It'd be
paying
like
you, though.
winning the
That's what I say. As long
lottery.
as it keeps optioning it and they pay you, that's at
Yeah,
least something, right? So
it's money it's earning money. I mean, it's something that's just sitting there earning money. So yeah,
yeah.
no complaints.
Yeah. So then your other series, and we'll get to your new book. Your other series was the as a doctor, right?
Yeah, Dr. Evan Wilding. He's an unusual character too. So I introduced his character in Gone to Darkness, the 4th Sidney Parnell book. He is a character who has haunted me for 2 decades.
Oh
He
wow.
just came to me. I don't know why. Didn't know what to do with him, and then saw the opportunity in Gone to Darkness and had a lot of fun. And my editor fell in love with him, this character, and said, "Why don't you write a series based on him?" And I said, "That'll be fun."
Yeah.
So Dr. Wilding, he is a forensic semiotician. So semiotician is somebody who studies signs and symbols across cultures and the meaning that people give to those signs. So you walk up to a bathroom door and you have to decide which bathroom to go into. You're decoding the symbol, if it's not the word written
Right.
out, if it's just a symbol, you're decoding that. And that's an act of semiotics. So forensic semiotician focuses on signs and symbols left behind at a crime scene or sent to the press or the police, like the Zodiac killer with his
Right.
coded messages. So yeah, I explored Vikings and runes in the first book. I looked at the world of antiquities theft in the second book. And then the third book, I just picked up the Greek myth of the Minotaur and ran with it.
So there's book 2, Dark of Night, and then Play of Shadows.
Right.
You got the little
So
symbol there.
What's an actual, well, it's not an actual,
Yeah.
it's a drawing of an actual Greek coin showing the Minotaur.
So it's a little bit like, oh golly, I'm drawing a blank too. What's the one that Tom Cruise played in the movies? And he was always his was always religious symbols.
Oh, not Tom Cruise. Tom
not
Hanks.
Tom Cruise. Tom Hanks.
Tom
Sorry.
Hanks.
Yeah.
Dan Brown.
Yeah, the Dan Brown book. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Dr. Langley.
Yeah, Robert Langham or something like that, I think, or Langley.
Yeah. So he was not a forensic semiotician, but yes, his specialty was symbols,
right.
and especially of religious.
Right.
Yeah. So But I didn't have the success of Dan Brown. I just can't figure it out.
You haven't been able to get Ron Howard to make the movies, huh?
No, no, he's sending my letters back unopened.
Oh wow! So yeah, so that sounds really. So that's 3 books in that series. Or is that series over, or do you think there's going to be more?
I think it's probably over.
Yeah.
So it's, yeah, with my publisher, Thomas and Mercer, I mean, there's some notable exceptions, but they've kind of found that sweet spot. People keep wanting something new.
Yeah.
And so unless you're Michael Connolly, your audience tends to drop off after the first few books. And so they just want to hit that sweet spot of maximizing the readership and then bring them something new. So
Yeah.
I did my standalone, which we can talk about, but now
Yeah.
I'm starting a new series. So we'll see how
So
that
yeah,
goes.
so this is your new one, and I noticed you're #1 on a few of the Amazon charts. I don't know if you've. I'm sure you saw that. I saw a picture of you holding the book. Someone had shared. So congratulations. That's
Thank
always
you.
nice on a new release. It just came out January 1st, even.
Right, right. So they let me do espionage. It's a super tough market, and I was thrilled that they let me do it because, oh my gosh, it was so much fun writing this.
Mm-hmm.
I knew it was going to be a standalone, and so I didn't have to worry about carrying any of the characters forward or any of the plot lines forward. Everything had to be resolved in that book, which was new for me. Um, but the whole spy world, it's, I ever since I read Sherlock Holmes, he wasn't a
Mm-hmm.
spy, he was a detective, but
Right.
it kicked me off down that path. Um, and now Daniel Silva and John Le Carre, whose son just wrote a book with one of his father's characters. I can't wait to read that. So I hope to go back to espionage at some point.
And so, what's the basic premise of the book then?
So it's set against the super yacht industry, which I learned about. There was an article in the New Yorker by Evan Osnos called The Haves and the Have Yachts. Because even among the ultra high net worth individuals, there's those who have a little bit more and they can afford a multi-million-dollar yacht, and they can afford the tremendous cost to keep a yacht year by year, maintain it and dock it. So once I had that background, I started digging around for how I could turn that into an espionage novel. So I have 2 sisters. They're the heirs to their family's super yacht building empire called Ocean House. And a lot of the action takes place in Singapore, where one of the sisters, it turns out, has been up to some mysterious activities. And then she dies. She falls or she's pushed. They don't know what the story is, from a 40th floor window from the Marina Bay Sands in Singapore, and leaving Nadia, her surviving sister, to try and figure out what's going on. And the next thing you know, she's pulled into. We've got the CIA, and then we have the China's version of the CIA, which is the Ministry of State Security. And most people are not who they claim to be.
Right.
So the family motto is trust no one, and that's what she's got to work with.
So is she a little bit of an amateur sleuth in this case? So she's trying to just figure out the puzzle of what happened, or?
Yeah, exactly. So I guess that does make her an amateur sleuth. She does not want to do this. She's introverted. She loves designing yachts. She loves being focused on the business. And her sister was the brave one, and Nadia's always considered herself a coward. And the sister who died, Cassandra, always pushed Nadia. And to me, it's fascinating what any of us would do when the circumstances changed. And of course, I think back to Nazi Germany, and would you hide your Jewish friend,
right,
even if it brought risk to your family? I mean, who are we when we're really in that cauldron, and are called upon to do heroic things? And me, I would, I'd like to think I'd be heroic, but oh
yeah.
my gosh, I don't know. I could just say I'm aging out of heroism or something.
So then the sister who survived did not have any type of military background or any kind of police training or anything. She was just a
No, the only
regular
thing that
person.
she knew how to do was how to run an SDR, a surveillance detection route, because one
Mhm.
of their clients had been an emir and he didn't want the paparazzi to know anything about his yacht. So the sisters had to learn how to shake a tail. So that's the one spy skill that she brings. That
And
and her smarts.
yeah, well, and determination too, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Just to get it, get the answer in that crazy world of you never know what's going on and nothing is ever what it appears to
Could
be, and it's
could you be a spy? I could not be a spy.
oh no, I couldn't.
It's
Of
like it
course,
was me. I did it. I'm sorry.
yeah. Well, yeah, it's like, and of course, maybe in the real world it isn't as complicated as we make it in movies and television stuff, but
No,
I
it's
think it
pretty
is.
complicated. It
It is
is.
pretty crazy, I
It's your
think, what's going
life.
on.
It
Yeah,
really is your life. If you're part of human, which is human intelligence, and you're a spy on the ground as opposed to doing cyber work, it's it's your life. So
yeah. And sometimes I'm sure you live in two worlds too. You live in the spy world, and you may have a personal life that you're trying to keep
completely.
separate from that.
Yep, absolutely.
So you got to do some research. So you sent me a few pictures of going overseas for this book.
There's my travel wife.
Yes.
Um, I think that was before we started recording. So Kathy, her husband is done with traveling. My husband can't get enough time off for these really long trips, so I call her my travel wife. We're very compatible, and this is us on top of the hotel from which my character Cassandra falls. So I just wanted people to get the view that she would have had before her death.
That looks really high.
It is very high.
And is there water underneath there?
Yep, yep.
So if
So
you were to
there's
fall out, you would fall into water?
Well, it's
Not,
not all the way around.
not quite.
So this is just a river that goes into the sea, but most of what's around the hotel is hard ground. But at that height, I think water would be just as, you know, gravity is,
Yeah.
what is it? How many feet per second per second? I used to know that. Um,
Wow. Yeah. And this was in
Singapore.
Singapore. Okay. And then you had this must have been a hotel, the hotel
So
in
this is an athletic club. This is where she meets one of the characters for dinner. And my travel wife was able to get us in there, and I started taking pictures, and then I was stopped. They said, "Well, you can't take pictures because it's a private club, and people don't want their pictures up." And I wasn't taking pictures of people, but
right.
and then she kind of laughed and she said, "But if you put your friend in the picture, then you could just pretend you're taking a picture of your friend." so Kathy would stand there, and I would just shift the camera a little bit and get my pictures. But this is one of the oldest clubs in Singapore, where the British used to hang out back in the days when Singapore was a British colony during World War II and prior to that. So I just kind of wanted to show the different ambiance you might get while you're in Singapore.
Well, I'm sure that club is probably, like you said, it was exclusive. It's probably very expensive too, I'm sure, to be a member
Yeah,
of the club.
everything in Singapore is expensive except the food. The food is outstanding, and most of it is cheap.
Is it really? Wow.
Yeah.
And then you have this, which looks to be a.
So this is a Buddhist monastery. You could just barely see some skyscrapers behind it. So that's the interesting thing about Singapore is there's all of these temples and monasteries set down in the middle of high rises.
Oh,
This particular temple is where Nadia is surprised by our bad guy, and they have a conversation there. So I got to go to all the places that I had planned to include in the book, which was lots of fun.
yeah. And then.
And the monks. So this is a Buddhist monastery. This is the Buddha Tooth Relic Monastery in downtown Singapore. It's just stunning getting to see all this. This was on Independence Day. We happened to fly in the day before Singapore's Independence Day, so they were having a big celebration.
And they didn't mind you taking pictures here.
Not at all. Not at all. I mean, yeah, you can't tell it from this picture, but there were a lot of people there. Because Singapore is really a melting pot. There's so many different cultures there. There's multiple recognized languages, so including English, which made things really easy.
Yeah.
And what they call Singlish, which is it's like Spanglish. You know, it's a patois of English and various Singaporean dialects. So that was fun.
So you can kind of get away with speaking English over there,
You
and
can
people
completely
can.
get away. It's you encounter people who don't speak English, but it's rare, at least where we were. I mean, I think in more rural parts of, it's a city state, but it's an island, and so within the actual city, everybody speaks English. Or that was my experience. I would imagine out in rural areas, because you've got people from India, people from Malaysia, you've got a lot of British expats, you've got American expats, you've got a lot of business people there because it's a huge technological hub. So it's such a melting pot of cultures and languages. It's so fun to walk around the streets and hear all the different languages and see all the different clothes, and then just suddenly come across a temple where people are burning joss sticks and praying, and um, I just don't know of anything comparable in the U.S.
And how long did you stay?
Week and a half.
And
Wish
then
it could have been longer. So that's my hotel. Don't read the text on there because that's an early version, but I had to, yeah, you know how that is. So,
yes,
but I had a
you
down,
were
I had
writing
to
while you
work
were there.
at, yeah, I was under deadline. So I was at it.
So some of the scenes that you created were from you when you went to tour areas. You're like, oh, this is going to make a great scene for this point in the book, and
Yeah, so some places I knew ahead of time I wanted to set a scene there. Others I stumbled across. I was very fortunate. A wonderful friend of mine, Uma, is from Singapore. Her brother still lives there, and he was a tour guide for us for part of the time. And so they had already worked up a list of things I probably wanted to see. And unfortunately, I couldn't work everything into the book. It would have been a travel log and not a novel, but
yeah.
that gosh, it was so fun. I'm so grateful that I got to do that.
And did you use a lot of the real names of places, or did
Yeah,
you make them up somewhat?
no, I went. I even used the Marina Bay Sands Hotel, even though some bad things happened there.
Yeah.
But I didn't say that. So
Yeah, that's the one time, people say, well, I like to use a lot of, how do you determine? It's like real places. Well, I do a lot of stuff here in Denver. I do use real places, but if there's something bad going on there,
yeah,
then I'll usually make up a name and a
yeah,
business in
yeah.
that particular area. So,
I do the same thing. I just
yeah.
figured nobody's going to be tracking this from Singapore. So
Yeah, I don't usually like to make a whole different town, some
right, I
authors,
know some authors
it's
do.
they'll
Yeah.
make a city that's within LA or whatever, but it's totally made up. I
Right,
don't
but you
know.
could tell that it's Paris or LA or I
Yes, for
think
sure.
that's more common with smaller towns though, isn't it?
Yeah, I
It's
think
like
so. Yeah, usually it's that way. So then, so this is a standalone. So what's next?
so I just signed a contract for a new series. So I'm back to my serial killer roots or my detective roots. But again, I'm going to have this one will pair up an FBI agent and then another specialist, a consult, a con, I can't talk, someone they consult with
Mhm.
during the course of the crime. But I'm back to Denver, so and even Colorado Springs. I think I'm going to manage to sneak Colorado Springs in there, which will be the first time I'll have written about my hometown. So that's going to be fun. Maybe I'll even throw the incline in there.
So the consultant is not going to be like a woman who is a stay-at-home mom that they find on the street. Like, I don't know what this new series. There's one new series now, and she's like a stay-at-home mom, and they
Oh
find her
yeah.
as a consultant. Right? It's like, where do they come up with these ideas for TV? Sometimes.
Somehow I missed that one. No, this is another specialist. So in the criminal humanities.
Yeah.
And that's as much as I want to say at this point
Yeah.
about the new stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. You can't
So
do it.
tentative.
So is there a novel that you've wanted to write that you haven't written yet? We were talking about romance authors and stuff and how popular they are. Is there something out there that you've really wanted to write and maybe nobody wants to publish, or maybe you've already written it?
I have not written it, but there's a historical, I mean, there's many novels I want to write.
Mhm.
I have no shortage of ideas and I get excited about all of them, but there's a historical novel I really, really want to write. My agent loved the idea, but I was finishing up the work I was under contract to do, and then the Middle East exploded, and my agent said, it's not the time for that book.
Yeah.
So that's on hold, sadly. It's such a hard book, I may end up writing it anyway, even if I can't sell it. It's a story that needs to be told.
So you've
That
got it
I
in your
need to
head, but
tell.
you haven't written any of it yet.
No, not a bit.
Yeah. And do you have a little or your ideas getting written down, piece of paper,
Little
I have this right
journal.
on my desk, ideas come to you. How do
So
you
good
keep
for you for doing that longhand. I have a file it's called novel ideas.
typed on a computer?
Yeah, yeah, it's
Yeah.
a Word document.
Well, for me, because sometimes the ideas come to me while I'm writing, and so that's why I write them down and just
Oh,
simple.
nice.
The only bad thing is my writing is so lousy, I sometimes can't even read my own handwriting.
I have that same
Or I write
problem.
it very cryptically and go, "What the heck was I? What was I was trying to remember what it was I actually was thinking about at
And
that
you
time."
look at it and that was the most brilliant
Yeah,
idea that you ever had, and it's lost forever.
that's right. It's like, what was it there? And yeah, I'm struggling to figure it out. So I always ask people, are you a plotter or a pantster or both, a little in between? How do you map out your books when you got those
Yeah,
ideas?
everybody has their own path, and I have tried very, very hard to be a plotter. So
Hmm.
when I wrote my first book, Blood on the Tracks, my first actual adult full length, nobody dies on the second page book, um, I had a mess when I finished it. And then I came across Blake Snyder's beats, and I thought, oh, my beats are all in there. They're just not quite in the right places. So I shifted things around. It was super helpful. I suddenly had this structure. So then with the second book, I tried to do that ahead of time. I had 800 pages I cut because I
Oh,
kept going down dead ends. And since then, I keep trying to plot and it keeps not working, and I keep trying to plot and it keeps not working. Now with the current book, I have the shortest deadline I've ever had,
yeah.
half the time I normally have,
Oh, wow.
and I'm not plotting. I'm going to do that. Was it Yale Doctorow who said you could drive from New York to LA at night by the headlights of your car, and all you need to see is as far as your headlights reach. So, Randy, we'll see how it goes.
Well, I'm a
It's a,
total plotter, or I'm a pantster. Sorry, all the
oh,
way. I
you are.
mean, I start with a basic idea and I write. And you're right. There are times when I write myself into corners, and I'm going, "What did I do there?" But
And the
it's
writing is always beautiful when you do that, right? You don't want to cut those words
no,
because
you
they're
really don't.
incredible.
Yeah.
You don't want to kill your darlings, but
So
it's
and you
working
can
for
only
you.
use. It was a dream, and I was in a shower in a dream like Dallas did the one time, and you can only get away with that once, right? And then you
Right.
can't.
I don't know if you can get away with that at all anymore.
Probably not. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. So you can't, that's the one fun thing about science fiction. You can sometimes, bring people back from the dead, and it's a lot easier in those genres than it
Well,
is.
Sherlock Holmes did it, right? He brought what's his name? Moriarty back
Moriarty,
from
yeah,
the dead after his readers protested so much. So I guess it's doable. But so pantsing is working for you.
yeah. It's always been the way I've written. I mean, I do I track characters and things like that a little bit, but just so I don't have any mistakes. But I've always been, and I'm one of those where I feel like the characters are in the room with me a lot of times.
Nice.
And they're talking to me a little bit, and even sometimes they're going, I need a bigger part, they're like,
Oh, wow, that's
they're a
so
little bit of
great.
that, like, hey, I need to have a little more words in
More
my
stage time.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I
I
feel
don't
like
know,
I'm a
Mike.
director or a producer, and the
Wow.
actors are talking to me. So,
Oh,
but-
I would love that. I mean, my characters are usually in the closet and they won't come out. Like,
oh,
we don't want to play today.
well, yeah, I guess you need to figure out a way to entice them, right? To
You
something,
do a
something that's
cheese
going to draw
platter
them
or
in.
something. Yeah.
But no, I've always been. I tried to plot a little bit beforehand, and I was even on a panel one year in Killing Nashville where we were talking about pantsers and plotter, and I was sitting next to James, and I always forget James' last name, and he does urban mystery crime
Mm.
stuff. And I go, he was talking about plotting and everything, and I said probably plotting is easier, because you got it all mapped out. And he goes, not necessarily. You still sometimes even though you get it all plotted out,
Yeah.
sometimes it still doesn't always work out, and you got to correct things. So
Yeah. So I'm trying to be patient with that. Just call it the messy phase
yeah.
and trust the process. Just trust the
Well, good
process.
luck, especially
Thanks.
with half the deadline. That's always a challenge, but I'm sure you'll make it through. And
We'll
maybe
see.
maybe no sleep, but
Yeah, sleep. What do the Marines say? I'll sleep when I'm dead.
that's right. Eventually, that's what you got to do. So we're getting a little past an hour here. So you mentioned that one of your characters was in, and that's one of the things I always ask: are there characters that cross over into your books? So you had that. Do you have any other characters that have come across in any of your series, or may be coming into some of your series, though you can't talk about it?
I am toying with the idea of not even telling my editor, but just slipping a character from my first series
Yeah,
into the new series, see if anybody notices.
little special appearance, huh? Cameo.
Little cameo, or maybe a little more than that. I don't know. We'll see. It's so fun to meet new people.
Yeah.
See, that's how I feel about my characters. They're like new people. Woo.
Well, and again, are they within the same universe? They always say that in the movies and everything else. It's part of the same universe. There,
Yeah, yeah.
obviously, Denver. You're mostly in Colorado with.
I've got detectives from major crimes again, so we'll see. I would
Well,
love
and
to
I
pull
even wrote a little
Sydney in.
short story that I just
Oh
put
yeah.
on my website. That I put my two protagonists, and they met in the bar.
Oh
Just
great.
casually, just
Oh how
happened to run
fun.
across each other. Just a little fun short story.
I'll have to
Yeah,
go read that. That
yeah.
sounds like fun.
Yeah, it was just like, he walked in because the private eye gets a bar later, and the Hunter Devine from the other series, he just walks in because is in Denver too, and he just walks into the bar one day. They start talking,
Wait, I'm
and
getting a joke here. So
yeah,
a private eye
yes,
walks
right.
into a bar.
That's right. So, are any of your stories based on real events or things that have happened to you in your life, or even some of the characters, people you know?
So my characters are not based specifically on people. I mean, it's always fun to pick up mannerisms or
Mhm.
dialogue, the way people talk. And I tell my students, come home with a face. You're out, you're running your errands, you're doing whatever. Come home with a face. Um, so I do that, and certainly, as you were mentioning earlier, we pull from real events. So in my Sydney series, there was always a definite link to things that are actually happening, and then very much also true for my espionage novel. That's all based on stuff that is going down now, even as we speak, and the people who are concerned that World War III will erupt between China and the US and the South China Sea over our commitment to defend the Philippines, because China is encroaching on their territory and they're getting more and more aggressive. So we hear about Taiwan, but it's happening all around in that area. A lot of conflicts with the Filipinos. So that's all ripped from the headlines. And I think the new book will um, I'm because I have an FBI agent, I got to go to Quantico. I will be working with agents from the FBI from the behavioral analysis unit. So I won't be taking any of their stories, but it'll certainly be grounded in that reality, which is fun. I love the research part.
So I'm assuming you didn't go through the training in Quantico. You just went to Quantico, right?
Got the tour, but and got to see where the actress from oh gosh, I can't talk at all. the Hannibal Lecter series, Clarice Starling.
Yeah.
Got to see
Silence of the Lambs. Yeah. Yeah.
Silence of the
Hannibal.
Lambs. Thank you. Got to
Hannibal.
see
Yeah.
where she trained. I took a picture of the tree that you see in that movie that the recruits run by when they're running
Right.
the obstacle course, and then they showed us where they filmed it and where they put the phone for the last scene when Hannibal Lecter calls her at her party, when she's being promoted.
Right.
They showed us they took out the phone because there wasn't actually a phone there, but they showed us the hole where the phone had been for the movie.
Did the phone end up in the Smithsonian, maybe, or one of those
Probably. Yeah.
places?
Yeah. So no, I've aged out of the FBI too. I'm sad to say, but I did do their Citizens Academy in Denver, which I highly recommend.
Oh, I got to check that one out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you
It's
have to
fascinating.
be physically in shape though? Do you got to do a lot
You
of
do
work?
not. You do
Okay.
not, but you do. It is an application process, and because I think because you said you did the police academy up there,
In
which
Westminster, and I'm gonna maybe do the fire department academy also, is what
oh,
I'm
that'll be
talking to as
interesting.
well.
And I did sheriff and police here in Colorado Springs,
Yes.
so I think that's a little more straightforward. But you just have to find out when the window is to apply for the FBI Citizens Academy. And they are a great group. I'm in their alumni association now, which is how I got to go to Quantico and to
Mhm.
FBI headquarters in DC. So, great group of people, just super smart, super engaged. I was the only writer. A
Yeah.
lot of white collar professionals, but
Were they
they're
worried
looking
about
for
telling you stories around you because you're a writer, or were they pretty open about
it.
stuff?
It became a joke.
Yeah.
Watch out, that's going to go in her book. Um, yeah. But that's true anywhere, right? And
Yeah.
what there's a great T-shirt, right? You know, be nice or I'll put you in my novel, or I'll kill you in my novel.
Yeah. I mean, I've had friends who work for the CIA, and that it's like, well, yeah, I could tell you, but I'd have to kill you, right? That's the story, right? Well, don't kill me then. I
Yeah,
really
I'm
don't want
not.
to die. I
I'm
want to
not
be able to
that
write the book, but I
interested.
can't
Yeah,
write the book if you kill me. So yeah.
it is great when you get to meet those people. I think that is one of the most fun things about being a writer is the people that you get to meet, the different jobs you get to experience secondhand or vicariously, and and when I was first starting out and I didn't have a credit to my name, it was very intimidating to approach people. Hi, I want to be a writer and I'm not published, but will you talk to me? But people love to tell their stories,
Hmm.
and they want you to get it right. So, for anybody in the audience who might be uneasy about that, people are great. So
Yeah, there's
don't let
very
that
few.
hold you back.
Yeah, there have been very few. I mean, I've talked to a couple of people. Sarah Paretsky, who's
Hmm.
the guest of honor at Left Coast Crime, which is coming up here in Denver in March. She's agreed to be on my show, which I thought,
Oh,
wow.
lovely.
Yeah,
Yeah, that'll
so
be
I'm
great.
going to have her on just before the event in March. If hopefully it holds. She's probably a busy lady, so you never know.
Oh,
But
you
I got
guys will
to
both
ask her
have a
about the
blast.
horrible movie that Kathleen Turner made of her
Oh, yeah,
Vi
I'd forgotten.
Wishorski. I'm
Yeah,
probably
we're
going to
sure.
butcher that last
We're
name, but her Private Eye, which has been most of her books, and um,
yeah, in
Kathleen
Chicago,
Turner is a great actress, but
right?
I don't think that movie was ever very popular and did very well. But
I did not see it. I don't
yeah,
know. Should I check it out?
that was in the late '70s, early '80s, I think.
Oh, wow.
And probably around a little bit after the Body Heat, when she got very popular and stuff. But yeah, it wasn't a very good movie, I don't
Oh.
think so. But she got paid well, right? So that's all that's important, I'm sure. So everybody can show up. So I always ask everybody this. The name of the show is Bringing Life to Characters. So what is it that you do to bring those characters to life that jump off the pages? What's your secret? Is there any secrets you could share?
I don't think there's any secret sauce. I think what's true, if you want to be a writer, and I would say all good writers are interested in people and what makes them tick. So taking the time to really get into this character's heads and I call it the method acting version of getting inside this person, looking at the world through their eyes. And I joke, if my family didn't, think I was completely nuts, I would probably set a place for them at the table. Just like, talk to me. So how are you feeling tonight?
Yeah.
And find that thing about them that makes them different from everybody else around them.
Yeah.
It could be a physical trait, but it's more interesting, I think, if it's a psychological aspect.
So I was going to ask you this about your standalone. A little difference in a standalone is you can flesh out the character almost completely in a standalone. Did you find that you've had to do that? Whereas in a series, you a lot of times are going to trickle things in about them through the series.
Right. And there was backstory to the sisters and their family that ended up playing a big part in the book, but it was difficult to weave that in. Had I been writing a series, we
Right.
would not have found out what happened with the family back in
Right.
the day. I would have withheld that. So you're walking a line between not putting in too much. And I do have this tendency to, oh, that's cool, let's put that in the book. And oh, that's really neat, let's put that in the book.
Yeah. And then it's 800 pages, like you said, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And they want 350 or however many words pages.
Although my books always come back from dev editing longer. So I send them 100,000 word book and it ends up at 104,000.
Really?
Wait, yeah. That's not supposed to work this way, is it? Didn't Stephen King say the second draft is 80% of the first draft?
Usually my editor, when it comes back, I mean, when it comes in as a Word document and they're using track changes, it's blown, but there's a lot of red in there. So by the time I get all the red in there, it's usually less words than,
which is good.
Which my editor, she's always telling me is that this doesn't advance the story. This doesn't advance the story. I hear that a lot from her. I was like, okay.
That's what they're there for, because we
Yes.
can't see the forest for the trees.
So what advice do you give aspiring authors other than don't do it? You're insane.
Well, just be aware that the inmates are running the asylum. And
they're probably going to be in your story, in the book, right? And they're going to kill a lot of people.
In some form or another.
Yeah.
But I always say read. I run across writers who do not read, and I don't see how you can become a good craftsperson, but also a good person of human nature without reading. Because some of the best examples of what really makes people tick are in novels. Novels to me are the fiction that tell the truth. So read, and then find your passion, write that, and stay in your lane. Don't worry about what everybody else is doing. Just follow your heart.
So Madeline Ames, she's a fan of mine that reads a lot of my books, and she watches a lot of shows, but she's going to start. She likes to listen to audiobooks these days. So
that would be wonderful. I haven't figured out how to squeeze that in, but audiobooks are great. So thank you.
Yeah, I love audiobooks too. I just wish they weren't so expensive for me to get made. Since being independent, I got to pay it out of my pocket myself. So, any marketing tips you like to share? What you obviously do? You do some events. You do get around. You do travel. I know you and Carter Wilson, and I know Carter very well, so they're going to be doing something here soon down in was it Castle Rock? I can't remember where it was at.
We do.
Yeah.
I need to make sure I'm where I'm supposed to be when I'm supposed to be.
Yeah, it's like at the end. It's the end of the month. You got a few weeks yet, but
yeah, I've got some stuff in between. I'm flying out to Columbus this Friday, and this is the first time. My publisher Thomas and Mercer does a great job, and there's so much. I'm so grateful for what they do, and it's stuff that I could not do myself. But with this book, I did hire a public relations firm, a publicist, and Dana Kay out of Chicago, and they've been doing a fantastic job. So that's why I have travel lined up. So we'll see how it goes. I don't know how you can kind of guesstimate the amount of PR. How much does that really turn into book sales? I don't know. I don't know how to calculate that. But we'll see. I wanted to give it a try, and I wanted to kind of live the author's life, go on tour.
So they scheduled everything for you then? This
Yeah.
date, that date, this date, yeah.
Yeah, and all of this while I have a book due really
Deadline,
soon.
yeah. Don't lose that laptop when you're traveling, right?
No, I'll be writing on the plane. I will be that person.
Yeah. And so what events do you have that you're thinking? Can you any of them cross? I know you have one in a few weeks. Do you have any other? Are you weren't gonna go to Left Coast Crime, you said, because you're gonna go to the one in Tucson?
Yeah, doing the Tucson Book Festival in March, and I will be doing VoucherCon next fall. But in the more immediate terms, I'll be with Carter Wilson. We're joking we're going to be sick of each other because we're doing Tattered Cover. Maybe on the 29th. It's on my website, and I'm sure it's on his website. And we'll be doing, of all places, Stillwater, Minnesota.
Stillwater, Minnesota. Okay.
And
what time of year?
I know. I'm never having a book come out
in January or February. I mean, golly, that's
yeah. It's all yeah. Those 2 months. I mean, my brother texted me said, when are you going to Columbus in Ohio? Because they're having a really bad storm. I'm like, oh great, I'm leaving Friday. And Chicago, I did an event with Tracy Clark and Lori Rader Day in Chicago, and now I know why they have airlocks in their buildings, because there really is a serious wind. I had not been there. I've been to Chicago several times, but not in the winter, so that was interesting.
Yeah, and Carter, and I was at an event with Carter way back when, before I was even knew who he was and stuff. In Deadwood, South Dakota, he went one year, and I hadn't seen him again until at VoucherCon this year, and got to talk to him. And he's like, of course, he didn't really remember me. It's been a long time, but he writes some really spooky, freaky books sometimes. It is, and you kind of wonder, like, where's your head at? Are you plotting something right now as we're writing?
You're a nice guy, but I'm not turning my back to you.
Yeah.
My husband, when he read a short story I wrote, and I'm sitting there waiting for his response, and he reads it and he puts it down, and he looks at me, and then he looks down, and then he looks at me again, and he says, "Where do you get this stuff?"
You don't want to get inside our heads sometimes, right? It's just like, you just never know what's going on up there.
Kind of a mess up there. Yeah. Bodies everywhere.
So have you been on his Making It Up?
I have. I have twice now. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's
so you got to make up a story with him. So.
Yeah, I'm terrible at that stuff. He's so good at it. And
yeah, I plan on having him on. I talked to him, and he's going to be on. And I'm like, I don't know if that I want to be on yours, because, yeah, I'm not very good at coming up with stuff off the seat of my pants like that. Every now and then, but I'd feel really pressured. So I'm not good with it.
And I think that must be pretty common, because he always prefaces it with, now, this makes everybody a little nervous, but it's okay. But, my mom always said, she's talking about herself, but I consider it true for me as well. I'm a good thinker, but I'm not a fast thinker.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you don't have an editor to help you behind you either, right? So.
I need Cyrano de Bergerac. Tell me what to say.
All right. So we probably need to start wrapping up here. So how do people find you? I know you've got your website there.
I see you've got that up. Yeah. And then you can find me on Facebook, Barbara Nickless Author, and on Instagram. My last name's got an unusual enough spelling. It's usually pretty easy to find me. But I don't do a ton of social media, but I always love to hear from readers, either through my website or on social media.
And all your books are available, obviously, on Amazon. And I'm sure you're wide. You're probably not. Your books are not Kindle Unlimited, right? You're not exclusive to Amazon.
They are on Kindle Unlimited, but so the ebooks, I think the way it works is those are exclusive to Amazon.
Yeah,
because
they're supposed to be.
They're trying to switch up what ebooks the library can libraries can hold, but my physical books are in libraries, and you can
Mhm.
certainly order them through any bookstore.
Great. So yeah, definitely check out Barbara's books there. And like I said, her new book was #1 on several of Amazon's charts, which is always
It's
great to
always fun to
see.
see. Yeah.
Yes, yes. We can now you just make that New York Times bestseller list, right? Which maybe you have. I don't know.
Wall Street Journal, I'll never make New York Times because
Yeah, whatever it
they
takes
don't
to
look
do
at
that.
yeah, they don't look at books from my publisher. So
Yeah.
there's a feud going on there.
All right. Was there anything else we needed to cover?
I
Yeah.
I think we've got it all, life, the universe, and everything, right?
Yeah. Great. Well, thank you. I enjoyed talking with you. Appreciate you being on. Good
Yeah, it
luck
was a
with your
lot of fun.
travels.
Thank you, Randy.
Yeah,
You
hopefully you
take
remember
care.
where you're at as you're all this book stuff going on. Like, what
What
city
city
is
am I
this
in?
again?
Yeah.
I used to work for a consulting firm, and I was always amazed at these people who traveled all over the country
Uh,
consulting and dealing with planes and connecting flights and weather. And I'm like living out of hotels, and I'm like, there's no way I could live that life. But you'll get to
yeah.
experience it for a little while.
Yeah. And then I'm ready to dig in. So
Yeah, yeah. Well,
wish me
good.
luck.
Yeah, good luck on the next book.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
having you being on. Hopefully, we'll see you. I hope they make it to BoucherCon this year. I don't know if that's
Yeah.
going to happen. I really want to get there because I want to talk to Michael Conley. I hear he's an easy guy to talk to. So
Oh, nice.
and so I was hoping to talk. I got to meet Andrew Child, Lee Child's brother, at the last one, and
Oh,
uh,
good.
Reed Farrell Coleman. That was great. So
Yeah, he's
hopefully
great.
a few other authors. So, but
I
I've
hope
got
he
a
can make it.
yeah. Well. So I'd love to have big. Of course, what happened down in New Orleans for New Year's makes me a little nervous. But hopefully they have the barricades up by the time.
Anywhere I know, because that's right in that district.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
Yeah,
just
it's
horrible.
anywhere you go now.
I
You
know.
don't know.
So, well, thank you, Barbara. Take care.
You take
Hopefully you
care as
guys don't get
well.
too crazy of snow down there.
Yeah, yeah. Stay dry and warm, Randy.
Yes, you do the same.
All right.
Bye
Bye
bye.
bye.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Appreciate everyone listening in. We'll have a recording of this it'll be on YouTube, and Barbara I'll give her a recording of it as well. But thanks, everyone. I don't know. I'll probably have another guest in a couple of weeks, but I don't know yet who. I'm still waiting to hear from people, but I'm going to have Blythe Hudson and Carter Fielding, a sister team, and they're around the world. So that's going to happen February 3rd. So we're going to see how that works when it comes to internet connections all across the world. So we'll see how that works. So, but thanks for everyone for listening in. We will see you all hopefully in a couple weeks.